Good afternoon and welcome back to the Touchline on Y254. Maxwel, Wasike and Robert Osoro, and of course commending you on top-notch exclusive interview by my very own man here, Robert Osoro, and Kenya Premier League CEO Jacko Good, of course discussing about the state of Kenyan football with regards to a myriad of issues, KPL, La Liga partnership, Supersport KPL contract termination, season high, season loss. Maybe what you forgot about asking Oguda is whether Narok Stadium has been now endorsed and approved for APL
it has been
use,
endorsed,
considering
yes.
that now Sofapaka Football Club intends to use it as their home team.
A very good ground for them, and I think there's a game that is happening there this weekend. So, Kariobangi Sharks, I think Zukerich will be heading that side to try and see how good the ground is. When you look at the videos, it was a good ground. But it is time we discuss the sports, betting, and the finance bill that came on board, and we are happy to be joined by people who will be affected by this bill if it goes through, and we hear their thoughts. Obango Bangoto, Coach Obala, famously for Kangembe United, is here with us today. And former basketball legend who played for Kenya back in the day, a tax expert too, Eliud Karaoke. Thanks a lot for joining us in this program today. Let's just go ahead and ask a very quiet question. What are your thoughts about this bill if it goes through?
I think it will be a big blow for sports in general in the country, because you see that these betting companies are the ones who have come to try and probably sponsor sporting disciplines. So the moment that that bill will go through, that means that people will just go back to the drawing board again and see. And you see, for a long time we've not had this kind of sponsorship from companies. So I just believe that if it happens, I think that will be the slow death of sports in this country.
Eliud, do you take that perspective? Your thoughts as a tax expert, when you look at this bill, what are your thoughts from the bill?
Okay, let me just begin by saying currently I want to speak from a federation point of view. I'm the treasurer of Wrestling Federation. Basketball, I played it when I was younger.
Yes.
So currently I'm chairing the Treasury Department of Wrestling.
Yes.
I'm also a member of the Executive Committee of Kenya National Sports Council and an aspiring candidate for the NOC elections treasurer. So combined with that one, the bill, as you say, is a little bit punitive. 50% is a bit steep, and I'm not sure what logic went behind it, the thinking, as the figures were being put down. But 50% certainly is punitive, and for coach who is a direct beneficiary, I think they will feel the pinch.
Yes.
A little bit more, because already money has been committed to several clubs, and so what happens to those programs that are already existing when this is pulled under? And I read that the betting companies have already informed them that they are going to pull out if this bill is passed. It's passed.
Eliud, of course, when National Treasury CS Henry Rotich was reading the budget just a few weeks ago, he indicated that taxes on betting firms will be raised from 7.5 to 50%. Do you see government rescinding its earlier decision? Of course, it has to go through Parliament for approval.
Well, let me say it was not only betting firms, but it's also gambling activities, lottery activities, and the prize money. The previous rates were between 12% and 7.5%. I think they are putting a flat rate of 50% on all the gambling, betting, lottery. And by the way, there's a lot of difference between the activities that are done by betting and the lottery and the rest. So, as I say, 50% surely. I don't know what informed them of that. It's something we need to discuss and find out probably what informed them of that decision.
Because from the government perspective, they are saying that this bill is used to set aside for the newly created National Sports, Culture and Arts Fund, support development of sports, culture and arts in Kenya. Now, Coach, for you, you are a direct beneficiary of this bill. It is public knowledge that you get 35 million a season from Sport Pesa. I understand you also got a letter from Sport Pesa saying, this bill passes, we are cutting off our funding to you. How does that will affect the extreme sports industry itself and sports in general? Because KPL, wrestling is there.
You see, like for us, extreme sports will be really affected, because you see now, our objective is to nurture talent and whatever we get from our sponsors is helping us to identify those upcoming talents, and we are running a very vibrant league, which is run professionally. And you see, from this league, we have really engaged so many youths. In fact, directly, if it goes through, that means over 500 youths will be rendered jobless, because we have a team of close to over 1,000 people who are working every weekend, and they're getting something out of it. So that means that you will render these young people jobless, and the rate of unemployment is going to shoot again. So I think this is a thing that the government should consider first, because this thing is directly helping people, because we know the rate of unemployment. And you know, if you decide now to pass this bill, and probably we say we close shop as extreme sports, that means these boys will have nowhere to go.
Yes.
Probably now we have rehabilitated some from bad vices now. That means that the only alternative is just to go back to where they were, to earn a living.
Well,
remember, it's the touchline on Y254. Maxwel, Wasike and Robert Osoro taking you through, keeping you posted with the latest in sports, both local and beyond. And right now we're discussing about sports betting and taxation. Remember, the government intends to impose huge taxes on betting farms and lotteries, from 7.5 to 50% if that bill happens to go through. And yesterday at a Nairobi hotel, of course, various stakeholders from federations, clubs that are being financed by one of the leading betting platforms, SportPesa, coming together, you know, to push and advocate for government rescinding its earlier decision to impose huge taxes on the betting platform. So you can keep your contributions coming, join the health conversation, be part of the program via social media platforms, Twitter handle, hashtag Touchline Y25, Facebook page as well, Touchline Y25, our personal Twitter handles at Wasike, Maxwel, at Osoro. But now to you, Eliud Karuik. What's your assessment with regards to how betting platforms have contributed to the growth and development of sport in Kenya?
Okay, the little I know is that they have geared most of their contributions to sports. I am not sure in which other sector they contribute.
yeah.
Their earnings, what they earn. Currently, the ones we are aware
Yes.
is in sports.
Actually, I wanted to ask, because for this one is directly affected from the bill, from the last question I asked.
yes.
But for you in the Wrestling Federation, you are not directly affected. If this bill passes and they create a sports fund, the way they are saying, and ideally, the government should be sponsoring you from that kind of money that they'll be getting, is something you can buy as a Wrestling Federation official or in your federation?
Well, my hope is we have not engaged the betting firms in terms of sponsorship for a long time. Remember, in this country, we have what we call minor sports and we have major sports.
Yes.
In terms of capacity, spectators, and all that.
Yes.
And I think, in my view, the betting firms, in their own wisdom, began with big organizations, team sports mainly.
Yes.
I know recently they signed in with the boxing team. I'm
Yes.
aware that boxing team signed some contract with, I think, one of them.
Yes.
And I think slowly they were beginning to come down until this now has happened.
Yeah.
But I'm not aware what else sports, PESA and the rest fund apart from sports. So where do the other earnings go? But I know they're business people, so they are doing business like any other person. And so a federation is a federation. It will be affected. Just the way extreme sports will be affected, so will the other sports be affected. I'm aware also that, that there were plans to start contracting the National Olympic Committee when we are going out for Olympic Games. Talks had begun to see how we can get sporting firms to come and help when our national teams are going for, say,
Yes.
Olympic Games. So I'm affected too. I can't say just because I don't receive money, you're not affected. No. We are talking from the federation's point of view. And my view is there should be a lot of lobbying to get this thing going.
Ubango, now over to you. Of course, when Eliud is talking about the earnings the betting platforms gain, of course, Kenyans argue that the betting platforms locally reap millions of money from them through betting, and they are justified to pay taxes, just like Kenyans themselves do. Your thoughts?
I think it's everybody's responsibility to pay taxes, be it a company, an individual. Taxes have to be paid.
But not 50%.
But you cannot just wake up one morning and say
This is
that
unanimous rejection.
I'll charge you.
Yes.
What if all these companies run away because of the tax issues and go and put them invest in other countries? Who's going to lose? It's us, because look at the history of sports in this country. How many companies have been here for years and years? They have never even bothered to come up and support sports. Sport Pesa just came the other day. Within 3 years, look at the impact. You see, for football, for instance, we've even developed partnerships with the foreign countries. Like they have partnerships with Everton, Arsenal, and out of these partnerships, you've seen what has happened. Our coaches have been trained. We've had capacity building for managers and whatever. So you see, the impact has been huge. But if you say that tomorrow you go home, where will we go? Especially for people who love football, people who are involved in nurturing those talents. Well, what will you tell that young boy that where do you want me to go? Yeah? And you have created a platform for him to be seen and for him to exploit his talents. So it's something ridiculous.
But you'll agree with me that the business is booming because we've seen plenty of betting farms locally.
But you know, when you go into business,
it's good to spread their wings a little bit further to
it's
overseas
good when you do business, you want it to boom. You want to get profits out of it. So it's not a crime to go into business and make a lot of money.
Not even that. How does he know it's booming? You know, Sports Pesa doesn't publish its accounts in the newspapers. So I don't know why he says it's booming, because it's not a public company. They don't publish the accounts in the newspapers like breweries and so forth. So the perception that they are making a lot of money could be true. I'm not refusing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just like any other organization, the tax laws are there to guide people on how much to pay. The corporation tax right now is 30%.
Yes.
VAT is 15%. Withholding tax is it 2.5? That's known.
Yes.
So my problem is, and I said this earlier, the thinking behind the government on 50% is something that needs to be discussed.
I remember the first member of parliament to start coming out with this bill was the game member of parliament, Jacoyo Mediwo. He's the one who started saying we need to come up, because ideally now we can say these guys were running on propaganda because they don't have the numbers to back themselves and say these betting companies are making a lot of money. Or how can we just say it?
But what about the social factor on it? What the betting does to young people?
That was our next point of conversation, because yes, these guys are making money. It is gambling. Guys are gambling. Youths are coming in. Is the government right in saying this tax is aimed at discouraging the youth and vulnerable members of society against participating in betting? It may negatively impact the sector's attractiveness to the investors. That social factor that you are bringing in, it's a good idea from the government perspective.
Well, I think the betting firms need to come up and counter that argument. Okay, every coin has two sides.
Yes.
So if that is what the government is saying, the betting firms should have gotten together, do a paper, and say we have put these measures against young people gambling, say, and abusing the issue of gambling. Remember, gambling and betting is addictive.
Yes.
The families have lost their maker. It's an addictive game. And once you begin on it, I can bet you will. Now more so in sports.
Yes.
Now when you bring betting in sports, and people will engage into them. So the betting and the gaming and lottery should have come together with a paper and say, because of that, these are the measures that we are taking so that this thing doesn't go. For example, if you give your son 1,000 shillings for, say, pocket money, and half of it he goes gambling when there's a game, say, for example,
Yes.
isn't that a way of, trying to show people some distraction? Two, you must also remember that casinos and the ones who are in town, the casino, the gambling guys, I have never seen a casino, and I stand to be corrected, supporting any sport. And they've been there for a long time.
Yes.
It's only the guys on gambling, betting, Sports Pesa that came up with the idea. But casinos have been with us for a long time. None of them have ever produced even a single cent, and I stand to be corrected, to support
Yes.
any, even darts, which is played in a bar.
I can only remember one time, I think some years back, when International Casino supported Gor Mahia Football Club.
Well.
But I think that is almost 20 years ago. So totally agree
They
with
should
that.
sit together, do a policy paper, say we are taking charge of this thing, we'll control, and they do a research on how they can control betting, and then produce it to the government.
Yes.
But have they done that up to now?
We were supposed to have the Anton Kimani Kungu, the chairman of Betting Control and Licensing Board here. One guy we could have asked those questions directly so that we could have answered them. But now, objectively, will the government and the stakeholders in gaming come into an understanding on how they can go forward? Because if it passes, you're in trouble.
Yeah, we'll be in trouble, but you see now, the same MPs are going around and saying they're going to create employment when once re-elected or whatever, and the same people want to pass this bill that is going to affect the young people. So what you can't understand. But you see, this is a case whereby if all the stakeholders can come together and sit with the government and say, argue out their case that probably if it is a way of trying to regulate betting, probably devise another way of trying to regulate it other than imposing a huge tax that is unreasonable. So they should just come out the way I agree with you, the way saying that probably all the betting and gambling companies can come together and maybe petition the government and say, this is what you want, we can do, but for the tax, I think that is unreasonable. It's just like telling us to close shop and probably go elsewhere to invest.
The problem we're having right now is a time limit. As you know, the current government, I think the parliament will be in recess, in readiness for elections.
Yes.
Sooner than
I think
later.
they're like 7 days into
Normally,
official.
when a bill comes and the bill has issues, there are several ways to counter it. Ask the tobacco farms and the beer farms, they'll tell you.
Yes.
One of the ways is to lobby. Get the stakeholders, get a paper written, and lobby. And try and lobby through professionals too. I belong to the Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and betting firms can work with ISPAC to come and lobby. Say, look, 50% is a little bit high. What are the allowable deductions after 50%? Is it at source? When I say at source, is it taxed up there, or is it taxed after you do your deductions?
Yes.
Those are the issues that now you engage Treasury with, and you try and lobby. The other group that can lobby is the federations, and I think there was a meeting, as my brother has put it yesterday.
Yes.
And instead of just making noise in that meeting and saying government is not doing its work, remember, government is a major stakeholder in sports. In my life, in sporting life, I've known that the people who have provided funds for sports is the government.
Yes.
Even as latest as the Rio Games, okay? So they are major stakeholders. So they are concerned too. I know the ministry is concerned too on how this is going to play out. But there are several ways to lobby for a bill, either to be put aside, number one, or two, to be amended. You can amend a bill, isn't it?
Yes.
Or three, it can be shelved for further discussions.
Yes.
Okay? The problem we're having right now is the time. I know they're rushing to finalize a few bills before they go on recess.
Yes.
And that will be now the problem that we're having. Will there be enough time to lobby? Can the betting firms try and get people together and the MPs and make them understand that you can shelve this for a while, continue with the former rates, while we discuss further and the effects. And you know, extreme sports can be part of the team. They can show the extent at which those young boys and girls will not be able to participate in soccer.
Yes.
And sports is a big business now in Kenya. It is huge. Yeah.
Remember, you're talking about sports betting and taxation on the touchline. Y254 Maxwel, Wasike, and Robert Osoro taking you through, joining us on the set. Eli Kariuki, a man from Wrestling Federation, also seeking to get elected National Olympic Committee of Kenya treasurer in the upcoming polls, and you know, he's also a tax expert alongside Athanas Obango, extreme sports operations manager, talking about and dissecting about the entire issue with government seeking to increase taxes on betting firms from 7% to 50%, and you know, according to federations and local clubs who the beneficiaries of the same, pushing and advocating for government to rescind its decision, and it's something we want to be keeping an eye on and keep you posted with all the details as they pan out. Now, as we wind up, Banda Kariuki, what do you think is the way forward?
Okay, let me just say the last year's budget, it's important to bring this out. The government amended the Section 15 of the Income Tax Act. They did allow organizations, those organizations that will fund sports, they can treat that item as a deductible for the tax liability.
Yes.
And I thought that was a good thing. Okay? And I thought with that enactment of that section, organizations will come rushing to sports people because your tax liability will be less.
Yes.
Okay? But apart from the sports betting firms, I know there are a few other organizations that came on board. The only catch with that act, and I think maybe that's where they fear, is that you have to inform the Cabinet Secretary of Finance in advance. Okay? And I can give an example. If KBC wants to support wrestling, for example, this year with 10 million shillings, it's my prayer that they can consider such a thing. They have at the beginning of their financial year in their budget say, apart this year we intend to finance 10 million shillings to sponsor wrestling, to participate in their thing. You write that letter to CS Finance, and then that information comes, and when you spend the 10 million in your financial year at the end of the year, you can deduct 10 million as an expense. So your tax liability will be less by 10 million. Okay?
Yeah.
And if you calculate it, you're more beneficial doing that, benefiting from that tax ability, than saying, no, we won't sponsor, but we'll have other issues going on.
Yeah.
I think that is an act that corporates have not taken advantage of, if I'm correct. And I'm wondering whether the sporting betting, BetLink and all the people have taken advantage of that thing. And I'm also thinking, probably the government is thinking, look, we gave them a window last year for allowing us, for them to pay less tax. Why are they fussing over 50% increase?
Yes.
You know, it has to be balanced. I don't know why organizations have not taken that advantage. However, my brother has asked a question. The best way, and I've said it, I agree, is to get together and lobby.
Yes.
Lobby through financial institution, lobby through my brother here and their teams. Get them together in an organized way. And I can tell you, many organizations have lobbied against taxes, and they have been hard.
Yes.
And probably the government can review this figure.
Your final thoughts, Coach Obango, because this proposed tax is on the profits of the betting, lottery and gaming and prize competition entities. Now, it is difficult to understand objectively how will this be discouraging the youth and vulnerable members of the society.
Okay. From what I see is that the youth are, I can say now, are the beneficiaries, because you see, you can blame the youth for having that betting habit, but it's the only alternative way of maybe trying to somebody is over 18 years and he has no job probably, and the only way he probably can is just to say patapotea patapotea. So he has 100 shillings, he stands a chance of getting 500 shillings by betting or whatever. But you see, first of all, look at the rate of unemployment in this country. That is what we should look at.
Yes.
It is rising every year. So me, I can say that lobbying is the best, the way my brother says here. And we also we don't have time. So the faster we move, the better for us. Otherwise, if we just sit back and make noise and wait for the government to act, then it will be impossible.
Remember, we are discussing about sports betting and taxation, and joining us on the set to dissect about the entire issue, Eliud Kariuki from Wrestling Federation and tax expert, alongside Athanas Obango, Extreme Sports Operations Manager, you know, and it's something we will be looking forward to and having much discussion about it. Of course, remember, it's the Touchline on Y254 Maxwel, Wasike and Robert Osoro. Several Kenyan Premier League fixtures lined up this afternoon. 5 matches on card. Joining us later on, just a few minutes from now, Simon Mulama, aka Sepe, from former Kenyan international, and Michael Were Mukusia Supersport football commentator, aka Bonga Boli, will be joining us. But before that, European memorable moments, considering that several European leagues have been concluded, several teams have been crowned champions. Chelsea Football Club, English Premier League champions, Juventus, Italian champions, Monaco, French League 1 champions, and Bayern Munich, Bundesliga champions. Let's look forward to that. It's the Touchline on Y254.